kind of been a little bit a while since I've done any real recording. So we made a hole here because we're going to have to be running a wire from our pump up as well as our lights. So I wanted to make it so that each one of these are the exact same so that they can stack into each other, and then kind of the same here. And while I was doing that, I kind of ran into a bit of an issue that I was starting to find, and I want to work today on changing up what that's going to be. So we're going to go like that. Okay, so right now this sort of locks into here, which is pretty cool, works pretty good. The problem is, so I don't know how they're going to be able to mass produce something like this. They'd either have to like cut it out or weld it, and that's going to cost more money. I'd rather just have like 2x2 piece that they can make cutouts and then have stuff that slides into it. So that's what I want to do. I want to change this into an injection molded piece. It'll be nice and small. That way if I have to do cutouts like the one that we have down here, it's not very difficult. And here's kind of the idea, is that basically we'd have a piece that has a part where it lays flush with the piece that it's going into, kind of as a stopper, and then it kind of crimps in between these, and that's kind of what locks these into place. So it's obviously going to be really tight, but I can then do cutouts and stuff on this piece here, and it's not going to be expensive. And then this piece just stays a 2x2 tubing, and we just have like a cutout here, a cutout there, and I can mass produce these really cheap. And this piece is a little bit more precise, and I can also do a bunch of stuff with it that lets me get this internal stuff. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, and that's kind of the plan right now. So that's what I'm gonna get at her right now. Alright, so as you can see, kind of made a couple little changes there for sure. So little of the idea here is when we have a piece that is like one of these injection mold pieces, you can do a lot of detail with them. And that was the whole idea of taking and making a piece totally separate that connects the two pieces, is because you're already paying quite a bit for an injection mold. So to add these details isn't a lot, because they kind of just mill it all out at once, depending on how complicated it gets. We'll see, maybe we can't do this, but this seems pretty doable to me. So what I can make it do is double up as the place where the water drains off, but I also need a place for the hose that's going to be feeding up each layer, and that's what I'm doing here. So this hole is going to put you feed your hose up, and maybe we have to make it bigger. It's more just for the concept. Everything's nice and tight. The water's going to drain from this side because it goes around and comes down here. But of course, everything's pretty tight, right? So it's going to drain down, it's going to come up from here, and then it's going to drain back into your main system. Do its cycle and come back around. And what I like about that is it's just like this piece now gets to be really simple because I can just cut it out. And if I need to make the connection tighter, I can always do that here. I have, oh, whoops, wrong one. Made a backup. So I can always do that here. I could have this piece kind of come up a little bit. I can have it come out a little bit more. I can be really precise with this piece. So I like that element. I'm going to play around with it a little bit more, see if I can kind of get it to stack. And hopefully if we can get something that is pretty solid, we can end up actually start doing prototypes in 3D printing. So yeah, I'm going to keep playing around. Kind of like did the stacking, see how everything looks. It's pretty good, but one problem, not really a problem, it's sort of like an obsession, if you will, is I'd like to set this up in such a way that I only need to make one injection mold piece, right? So right now I want to be able to, I want to make it so that I only need one of these pieces for all of it. So that takes care of my power end as well as my water end. Now, it's kind of greedy, but if I can design this piece so that it works on both sides, that's the power side, which we're going to work on next, as well as this water side. What was it? I think it was 20, yeah. So I want to be able to take this same piece and plug it in here and have it do the same thing. So it kind of looks like parts of it are going to be very doable. This part is actually going to be on the bottom, and I don't really care what happens to the bottom on this side, but I need room to run a cord, and the way that I have this designed right now, it doesn't really give me that room. So I'm almost thinking of like cutting this in half and just leaving it all open, and then we kind of are going to have this like separation where the water comes down, comes out on this side, and then you're going to have this all completely open, and then that way I can cut this open, and that works good for feeding the hose for the water end, but it's also going to work for this end because I already have this open, and I need this open so that I can feed the wire for the lights through on both sides. So yeah, that's the plan now. So the lights finally arrived, yay! But bad news is that they actually sent the wrong lights. This one's pink. It's incredibly bright, which is awesome, but we wanted a white light, so we can still use it for modeling, but I'm waiting for the white one. Here we are, back at her. So I ended up modeling up the light that you guys see, and it's kind of a rough model in, but gets the right shape and some of the dimensions of the things that I plan on having hook into it. So I also had to remake the tray because the other tray wasn't, it was sort of just a generic rectangle with numbers that felt nice, like 300 by 400, but it wasn't actually designed to fit this light. So I remodeled the tray so that the LED fits nicely in here. And that gives us the option of now being able to kind of hang the light underneath. As you see, it looks really nice and clean. And now I have to find out exactly how I'm going to hook this. So I actually found like what seems like the simplest way to do this is just a hook. A hook that just hooks into the bottom of the light here where these little holes are, and then just hooks onto the side. And then you just have like 4 of these hooks like you see here, and holds up the light really easily. It's not going to go anywhere. These are really cheap to manufacture. And boom, now our lights are being held. And yeah, I like that idea. The next step was just kind of how I wanted the cords to go. So I ended up sourcing, I wonder if it's still here. Yeah, I was watching South Park. It's not very professional. Let's just see here. This. So, this is what we are looking for. So the way this is going to work, ordered up some of these, is this is how we're going to be plugging into our LEDs. So the LED plugs into this side. The next one plugs into here. And you can just kind of daisy chain them all the way up. So what that meant is that we had to have a cutout big enough to put a cord in, and then have another cord kind of come out and then just kind of tuck it away in here, or even up here, because there's going to be a lid that covers all of this in. So that's going to make it so that you don't get to see any of the wiring, any of the hooks, any of that stuff. It looks super duper clean. And from underneath, you might just see a wire coming out from here to here. So it's also going to look really clean, and we can daisy chain them, which makes it modular. And overall, I really like that design. Also worked a little bit into this water connector. The problem with doing it the way that I was saying is that we have to be able to run a wire up here. And that's kind of a bit of a problem, because if you don't have enough space to pull the cord through, which the old connector didn't. So the old connector, we'll just hit OK there. We'll hide this. We'll put the old connector back, which was, I believe, here, was this. So there's no way you're fitting a cord through here. It's just not happening. So I figured, okay, well, let's just go with a cutout, and maybe we're going to put another insert in. So this kind of insert works on both sides. It's open on this side for the drain, right? Drain would come in here. I just haven't done it because I haven't finished modding up this one. And then I'm going to have another piece that's actually going to go and hold the light and the tray from this connector. And the whole idea there is now we finally have something that holds up the tray from the legs. It's going to slide into this piece is my plan. Yeah, that's kind of the plan. And then that's going to let it hold up this tray, as well as it gives us the option of having two interchangeable types of pieces. So one will be here for kind of your drain. Water comes in here, water drains down there, and that's for the water side. But if you're not using the water side, you would have just kind of the normal connector, which is going to let you run your cord, because there's like the cord plugins are actually quite wide, so I want to make sure that there's enough to run that up there. But we also are going to need some type of a way to hold up this tray. So that's kind of the next plan going on now, and I'll let you guys know what I find. We've been playing around a little bit here. I really like how this turned out, actually. So the whole idea is that we have a piece that's going to get connected to, oh, come on here. All right. This is all going to be one piece. It's injection molded, which lets us do a lot of precision. Now, it still has to get refined more, because obviously we have the side that the water's going to come down. This is for the power end. This is kind of what I got the piece looking like so far. It's relatively simple. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit nicer. I mean, it's in real sharp sizes because it's just easy to do for the measurements when I'm building it. But I can always polish this up more later. But what's really cool is there's an LED light, and the LED light actually has a little opening in between the light, and then there's a mounting for it. So what that lets us do is put these little arms underneath it so that it can't fall. But that also, if we put the tray on top, I can use that to hold the tray, like you see here, and hold the light at the same time. And I really like that, because it's holding it there. It can't really move, and especially once the other side gets put in, you can lift up the tray without having to do a whole bunch of complicated stuff, which is really nice. It makes it easy to clean, but it almost makes it impossible for this light to come out. You'd have to pull off the tray to pull out the light, and I really like that design. I think that's a really, really good way of doing it. So yeah, I like this. I'm going to do this on both sides, and I think this is a great way to hold this. I still have to figure out what I'm going to do here so that this piece can stay the same. I actually would ideally, and I don't know how I'm going to do that, is to have both these pieces. So make one piece, this all the same piece for both sides. And I think I'm just going to do it with a different insert. So I could just go like, oh, well, I'm just going to flip it around, and now it's good for that side, right? So I'm going to have to play around with that, but so far I like this. This is great. Looks fantastic. So I'm happy with the way that's turned out. it's the way all of these go is you run into a problem and then you're like, this is impossible. I'm going to have to start the entire project all over. And then every once in a while you get some things that go together really nicely. And this would be one of those. Originally I was going to put it where there's like these same little hooks on the end where it's going to be on this inside. But once I had the light, I realized like, holy cow, this just fits perfect. And now it keeps this light always centered really nicely. I wouldn't even need the hooks. Maybe I'll still go with the hooks. I don't know. Like they still fit with this design, and it makes it so like now they're definitely linked, but I don't know if it's necessary to make things a little bit easier if we didn't have it. And when you're assembling it, it's still really, really tight. Like if you can't lose these lights. You have to take off the tray to get to the light. And then even then, like if you can picture this other piece on this side, if you picture this other piece on this other side, you'd almost have to remove these legs in order to get the light out, and I really like that. There's also a nice little opening here so we can run the wire. I might even be able to set up something so that you run the wire even cleaner, but so far I really like this setup. I think this is really good. And then of course you have the stand that's going to go on top of both sides. There's still the gap for that all to fit. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty good. My only concern is how precise this tray has to be. I want to keep it vacuum formed so that I could reduce the cost to manufacture it. If I have to injection mold this, it gets really expensive. So that's the only concern, is whether or not I can be this precise so that I can reliably make a piece that's going to fit. It doesn't have to fit necessarily tight. That's the other nice thing about this design right now, is this could have some gaps. This is what's holding it. And this doesn't have to be perfect either, because this is just kind of like there's gaps underneath, but once both sides are in, you're not going to have that problem. So anyways, that's what I found. I think it's going to work good. I'm going to keep playing around. Now I have to integrate this for both sides, and I'll tell you what I come up with. As we were talking about before, we're going to do the cutout for our water side. So I've been playing around with this for actually about a day, trying to do a combination of learning how to sculpt, which wasn't easy, and then trying to get a design that's going to be vacuum formable, but also be able to have an insert as well as the one piece that goes here like from before. So I want a piece to go in between here, so I needed to kind of cut this out so that I could do exactly that. There. So now there's actually space for me to put an insert, which is going to be used for the draining mechanism. So this is kind of what I have so far. It's unfortunate because something like this took so long to learn, trying to get the shape and all of that to fit together so it actually looks like a solid body. Of course it still looks terrible, and it has to be cleaned up more, but it takes so much time, it's just not worth it. I'm trying to explore the concept. I can polish it later. So I like the concept. The concept seems like it's going to work. So next thing, now that we have our water connection made out, we want to be able to make some type of an insert that like takes the water from up top and lets it go out. I think I got a water stand here. Yeah, so like the water will come out, goes around, and then it goes down into this drain, right? And it can't really come over, but once it drains, it needs to have something to catch it so that it goes past this point. So that's what I'm going to work on next. So that's all the time we have for this one. I think we've made a ton of progress, and I can't wait to see how it all starts to come together.